What she did in the dead of night was something no one would believe. Once upon a time, in the small village of Amakohia, there lived a woman named Nkechi, known far and wide for her delicious food. Her small stall, located near the village square, was always filled with people eager to taste her meals, from the crispy akara that melted in the mouth to the spicy jollof rice that left tongues tingling. Nkechi's food was nothing short of magic, but there was something more to her meals than just the spices she used, something dark. Nkechi was a beautiful woman with skin like the smooth bark of the iroko tree, her eyes as bright as the stars that dotted the night sky. Her hands moved like the wind, swift and sure, as she prepared her meals each morning before the first cock crow. But no one ever saw Nkechi buy ingredients from the market, yet her food never lacked in quantity or taste. The people of Amakohia whispered among themselves, wondering how she managed to keep her store so well stocked. Even during the dry season, when food was scarce, someone said it was a blessing from the gods. Others believed she had a secret farm where she grew her ingredients. One evening, after the sun had dipped below the horizon and the village was quiet, Obinna, a young hunter, decided to find out the truth. He had always been curious about Nkechi, her beauty, her charm, and her mysterious food. He had heard the rumors, and something deep within him urged him to uncover her secret. Obinna waited until the village was asleep. The only sound was the distant hooting of an owl. He moved silently through the shadows, his steps as light as a cat's paw, until he reached the back of Nkechi's hut. From there, he could see the flickering of a dim light from within. He crouched low, holding his breath as he peered through a crack in the wooden wall. What he saw made his heart race and his blood turn cold. There, in the middle of her kitchen, Nkechi was chanting softly, her voice a low murmur. In front of her was a clay pot filled with a bubbling dark liquid. She reached into a small pouch tied around her waist and pulled out a handful of something that Obinna couldn't make out. With a swift motion, she sprinkled it into the pot, and the liquid eased and floated, sending up a plume of thick, fragrant steam. Obinna's eyes widened as he realized what she had thrown into the pot: small, delicate bones, the bones of a child. He stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest, as the horror of what he had seen sank in. Nkechi's food, the food that everyone in the village loved and craved, was tainted with something unspeakable. He knew he had to tell the others, but how could he? How could he make them believe him when Nkechi's food had brought so much joy to the village? And yet, how could he keep such a dark secret to himself? Obinna's mind raced as he crept away from Nkechi's hut, the weight of the truth passing down on him. The night was thick with silence, and for the first time, it felt suffocating. He had to choose between revealing the truth and facing Nkechi's wrath, or remaining silent and letting the darkness continue to feed the village. The story is just beginning, with layers of mystery and dread waiting to unfold. Read along with me. Obinna's mind was a whirlwind as he hurried back to his small hut on the outskirts of the village. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the ground itself was trying to pull him back. The image of those bones in Nkechi's pot haunted him. replaying over and over in his mind like a dark, twisted melody. He could still hear the eerie chant, the way her voice dipped and rose like a snake, winding through the tall grass. When he finally reached his hut, he slumped against the wall, his breath coming in short, ragged gasps. How could he face the village with this terrible knowledge? His hands trembled as he thought about the children who had disappeared over the past months, children that everyone assumed had been taken by wild animals or wandered too far into the forest. But now, Obinna knew the truth that twisted his stomach into knots. Sleep was impossible that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Nkechi's face, a smile that now seemed more sinister than sweet. By the time the first light of the dawn crept through his window, Obinna had made a decision. He couldn't stay silent. He had to do something, but he knew he had to be careful. If Nkechi found out that he knew her secret, his life could be in danger. The next day, the village seemed unchanged, the people moving about their daily routines with no idea of the darkness that lurked within their midst. Nkechi's stall was as busy as ever, the aroma of her cooking wafting through the air, drawing people in like moths to a flame. Obinna watched from a distance, his heart heavy with the burden of what he knew. He decided to start by talking to the elders. They were wise and respected. Perhaps they could help him find a way to expose Nkechi without causing panic. That evening, after most of the village had settled down for the night, Obinna made his way to the home of Nnamdi, the oldest and most respected elder in Amakohia. Nnamdi's hut was nestled beneath a large udala tree, its thick branches casting long shadows on the ground. Obinna hesitated at the entrance, his stomach churning with nerves. Finally, he gathered his courage and knocked softly on the door. "Come in," a deep, gravelly voice called from within. Obinna pushed open the door and stepped inside. Nnamdi sat by a small fire, his face illuminated by its warm glow. His eyes, though clouded with age, were sharp and observant as they fixed on Obinna. "Obinna, my son, what troubles you at this late hour?" Nnamdi asked, his voice calm and steady. Obinna took a deep breath and sat down across from the elder. He looked into the fire, the flames dancing like spirits in the night, before speaking. "Nnamdi, there is something I must tell you. Something terrible," he began, his voice trembling lightly. "It's about Nkechi and the food she serves to the village." Nnamdi raised an eyebrow, but said nothing, allowing Obinna to continue. "I saw her last night in her hut. She was she was cooking something in a pot, and I saw her put bones into it. The bones of a child." Nnamdi's voice broke as he said the words, the horror of it washing over him again. Nnamdi's expression darkened, and he leaned forward, his gaze intense. "Are you certain of what you saw, Obinna? This is a serious accusation." "I am certain, Nnamdi," Obinna replied, his voice stronger now. "I could never mistake what I saw, but I don't know how to tell the others or how to stop her." Nnamdi was silent for a long moment, his mind working behind his deep-set eyes. Finally he spoke, his voice low and thoughtful. "This is indeed a grave matter. If what you say is true, then the village is in great danger. But we must be careful, Obinna. Nkechi is beloved by many, and such a revelation could tear the village apart. We must find a way to expose her without causing chaos." Obinna nodded, relief mingling with his fear. He was no longer alone in his burden. But as he sat there, the fire crackling softly between them, a new fear began to creep into his heart. Nkechi was not just an ordinary woman. She had powers, dark powers that could reach into the hearts of men and bend them to her will. If she sensed that they were plotting against her, there was no telling what she might do. "We will need help," Nnamdi said suddenly, breaking the heavy silence. "There is a man, a dibia, who lives in the forest beyond the village. His name is Onyekachi. He is known for his wisdom and his knowledge of the spiritual world. If anyone can help us, it is him." Obinna felt a flicker of hope at Nnamdi's word, but it was quickly overshadowed by the enormity of the task ahead. They would have to tread carefully, for any misstep could mean disaster. And as they left Nnamdi's hut that night, the shadows seemed longer, the air thicker, and the village, once so familiar, now felt like a place where dark secrets thrived. Obinna's heart pounded as he made his way through the dense forest, the tall trees looming over him like silent sentinels. The path to Oyekachi's home was narrow and winding, with thick roots snaking around the ground, threatening to trip him at every step. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and the sounds of the forest. The chirping of crickets, the distant hoot of an owl filled the night. When Obinna finally reached the clearing where Onyekachi's hut stood, he paused, gathering his thoughts. The hut was small and humble, with a thatched roof and walls made of mud and sticks. A faint light glowed from within, casting eerie shadows on the ground. Obinna took a deep breath and stepped forward, knocking softly on the wooden door. The door creaked open, and an old man with a long white beard and eyes that seemed to hold the secrets of the world appeared in the doorway. His gaze was sharp and piercing, as if he could see through Obinna's soul. "Onyekachi," Obinna began, bowing his head respectfully, "I have come seeking your help. The village of Amakohia is in grave danger." Onyekachi stepped aside, motioning for Obinna to enter. The inside of the hut was dimly lit, with herbs hanging from the ceiling and strange symbols carved into the walls. A fire crackled in the earth, its flames casting a warm, flickering glow over the room. "Tell me everything," Onyekachi said, his voice calm and steady. Obinna recounted everything he had seen, from the eerie chants to the child's bones in Nkechi's pot. As he spoke, Onyekachi listened intently, his expression unreadable. When Obinna finished, the old dibia nodded slowly, as if piecing together a puzzle. "Nkechi is not what she appears to be," Onyekachi said after a long silence. "She is a witch, one who has made a pact with dark secrets in exchange for power and prosperity. The bones you saw are those of innocent children, sacrificed to the spirits she serves. Her food, beloved by the village, is tainted with dark magic, binding those who eat it to her will." Obinna shuddered, the full weight of Onyekachi's words sinking in. "How can we stop her?" he asked, his voice trembling. Onyekachi's eyes flashed with determination. "There is a way, but it is dangerous. We must confront her and break the dark paths she has made. But be warned, Obinna, this will not be easy. Nkechi's powers are strong, and she will not give them up without a fight." The next night, Obinna and Nnamdi gathered a small group of trusted villagers. Together with Onyekachi, they made their way to Nkechi's hut. Under the cover of darkness, the village was eerily quiet, as if sensing the confrontation that was about to unfold. As they approached Nkechi's hut, Onyekachi raised a hand, signaling for them to stop. He began to chant in a low melodic voice, drawing symbols in the air with his hands. The wind picked up, swirling around them as the old dibia called upon the spirits to aid them in their task. Suddenly, the door to Nkechi's hut burst open and she stepped out, her eyes blazing with anger. Her beauty was now twisted, her face contorted into a mask of rage. "You dare to challenge me," she hissed, her voice filled with venom. "You foolish men do not know the power I wield." But Onyekachi was undeterred. He continued to chant, his voice growing louder, more commanding. The air around them crackled with energy as the two forces clashed, light against dark, good against evil. Nkechi raised her arms, and a gust of wind tore through the clearing, knocking some of the villagers off their feet. But Onyekachi stood firm, his chant rising to a crescendo. He reached into a pouch and threw a handful of white powder into the air. It glittered like stars as it fell, surrounding Nkechi and forming a barrier that she could not break. "No!" Nkechi screamed, her voice filled with desperation as she realized she was trapped. Onyekachi's voice boomed over the howling wind. "By the power of the spirits, I break the pact you have made. Your dark magic shall no longer burn this village." Nkechi let out a blood-curdling scream as the barrier tightened around her. Her body convulsed, her face twisting in agony as the dark spirits she had once controlled turned on her, pulling her into the earth. The ground beneath her feet opened up, swallowing her whole until there was nothing left but silence. The villagers stared in shock as the spot where Nkechi had stood, the weight of what had just happened settling over them. The wind died down, and the night returned to its usual stillness. Onyekachi lowered his arms, his face etched with exhaustion. "It is done," he said quietly. "Nkechi's dark magic is broken, and the village is saved once more." The villagers returned to Amakohia, their hearts heavy with the knowledge of what they had lost. They mourned the children who had fallen victim to Nkechi's dark deeds and vowed never to forget the price of her delicious food. As the day passed, the village slowly began to heal. The shadow of Nkechi's evil faded into a distant memory. But the story of Nkechi and her dark secret lived on, a cautionary tale passed down through generations. And in the quiet corners of the village, where the shadows lingered just a little longer, there were those who whispered that on certain nights, when the moon was full and the air was thick with the scent of cooking, you could still hear the faint echo of her screams, carried on the wind. And this is how Nkechi destroyed herself because of a quest for fame and power.